So today you guys are going to move away from unit testing, and instead you're going to try and build a console app. There should be enough help in the videos to get started, and I also added a couple of helper GitHub repositories that you guys can go and check out if you need help. But today it's going to move away from being testing code that I already built to you guys actually having to build something from scratch in C#. So it's really up to you how you want to do it. I've added this small exercise right here where you have to make a video menu. Now you can take video and replace with anything you want. It could be Corona mask selling application. It could be whatever you want. It's just some kind of object in the real world that we can buy and sell that has some kind of information that we need to reference as properties. So you're going to need, in video case, it's an ID, it's a title, release date, and storyline. I added in my examples, but it can be anything you create right here. It's not the object that's important. It is important, however, that your menu in the beginning can show. I'm not talking about executing this yet. It should be able to show these different options in a menu. So you should be able to do the CRUD functions, right? I'll show you an example in a second where I have a running menu that I can try and display to you. So the idea is pretty much that you have a way where you get a menu that says, if you pick 1, you're going to create a new hat. 2, you can list all the hats available. 3, you can buy a hat, or no, sorry, you can delete a hat and you can create a hat. And yes, if you want to extend it, you could add buying, you could add a normal shop to your menu, but I think that's extensions. You should also be able to search, but I added a could right here, so it's up to you if you have the time. A search, you could use the find function we played around with yesterday to start searching different areas. For instance, I want to find all the hats that are red, right? You could do that. Or all the videos that contains snurf in the menu, right? And then if you want to extend this even further, your menu, whatever you're building, maybe it's hat, could contain an extra object inside it, which is another class. So it could have like a color class. So you have another class representing all the different colors you have available for your hats. Or it could be patterns, or in this case with videos, it could be genres. So you have like a horror movie or whatever, and then make that an extra class to start getting into the relation part of your code. So that's kind of the goal for today, that you will build this video menu from scratch. And I will, of course, help you get started in a second. When you're done, I would like you to share the code on GitHub, right? And when I say that, it's pretty much just, one second. It's pretty much just that you want to create on your GitHub account a new GitHub repository and add all your code up there. So why do it? Well, either you can sit down as a team and just show each other the code, or at least you, as a minimum, get an understanding about how you deploy to Git again, or send your code to GitHub. And that's kind of the goal with it, just to get started on working with GitHub again after the vacation. So that's the goal for today. Now, I've added some inspiration for you guys, and let's start with, if you jump to the crash course with the videos for today, if you go down to the comments, there's actually a link right here for an old GitHub repository, and let me just start there. In that one, you have pretty much a console app for a lot of different exercises. You can go and check out the code. And then in this one is actually a very basic program with a very basic console app. Now you can use in here, there are a few things that are valuable. For instance, here's how you create a list of customers or whatever you guys want to build, how you create single objects, how you add them to your list, stuff like that. And later there's actually also how we can use selections. With the show menu right here, let me show you that. You have an external function that can actually, using the out keyword, try pass right here. You can see an example of that and how that could work. And how it can then pop up and ask, select a menu between 1 and 5. If you pick anything different, you'll be asked again, right? So there's help in here to get up and running with the try pass and a menu selection, if you kind of want to play around with that. Another thing I have added here, again, the code is old, but it works perfectly still, nothing has changed. So if you go to the final console app, number 7 right here, I actually split things up even further. So I have like my main program right here, and all it does is start a printer, and the printer contains everything that I need to do to, again, work with my menu. And again, I have a list all, an add, delete, edit, and an exit function available in here, just like you guys have to build. So hopefully there's a lot of help in here and also in the videos, so you guys can get started. So what you need to start working with for building a console app is the console write line and console read line. And the reason that I built this printer class right here, which contains all my console read and write line, is now I don't have to use static all over the place, right? If in the first example, you guys will see that if we look at the first menu right here, all of my different methods will be static. So because I'm working inside a static void main, everything in here will be static. So we have a static method here and a static method here. That's not a problem today, but as we move forward, I don't want you guys to use static. It's something to do with memory management. It's something to do with code being mixed all over your code base. So you end up having a lot of hard time if you want to change code and stuff like that. So I don't want the static keyword to be in here. And that's why the second repository, number 7 down here, I remove all the static by adding this printer class, and that contains pretty much the same methods, but notice now we don't need any static functionality. I also try to limit the amount of code needed, and then here I also have a customer that actually contains an address object. So now we have a relation between customer and address. Here's a new one I built, which is this repo right here with a layered console menu. Now this is a bit more complex than the other ones. We start looking into layers. So look right here. This is like we talked about the first few days. Here I have one solution containing multiple different projects, and each project has its own responsibility. And this is the way that we're going to code from next week. We're going to start splitting up our code into multiple projects. But here again, I just made a simple menu with multiple layers. So you guys, again, if you want to play around with that today, you can go and you can have a reference for that as well. In the UI, that's where all the things actually happen. And notice there's a lot of files right here. Here's the program file that launches everything. And again, you can go and check it out if you want to. But again, we are going into a bit more complex code right here. Let's just try and run it so you guys can see an actual menu running. So this is what I expect that you guys can get to. I actually added a sub menu here as well to make it even more complex. You don't need that. You only need one menu level. But here you can say 0 to exit. You can say 1 to get to the customer, or you can say 2 to get to the video area. I'll press 2. Oops, not up here. Down here. I'll press 2 and I'll press enter. Now you'll see I get a second menu that says 0 to go back. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. What do we want to do? Well, I want to create a new video. So I'll press 3. I can put in a title. Let's make the new video cheese. I can put in a storyline about cheese and stuff. And I can put in a date. So I'll just put 12/04/11. No, I just made this one. It's going to be a great one. 20/08/10. And it says that the video was created. Now, all of this is, of course, something I have to take care of behind the scenes to get this printout and read line into the system. Press enter to continue. And now I can try and list all videos by pressing 1. And hopefully the new one, the cheese one right here, has been released. And here's another one that I made earlier. And if I press enter again, I'll get back to the menu. If I press 0, I'll go back to the main menu. And if I press 0 again, I will exit the application. Since you're going to create your own project now, you're not going to use anything of mine. I'm going to start out by explaining, here's where you create a new project in Visual Studio. I select console app, and this is extremely important that you guys select the C# version, not Visual Basic, the C# version, and also it says .NET Core. That's very important when you select this app. The first time you've done it, there will actually be a recent project folder over here you can use, but the first time you do it, you click this one. I'll click next. So now we have a solution available. And from this point on, if you're using Mac or Windows or whatever you're using, Linux, the only difference is actually where you should press the start button, because the rest is just C# code. Okay, so that's also important to note. Good. So what kind of things can you do in here? Well, first of all, you have the write line, and console write line is just a way for you to, to print to a console, right? So write line, read line. But notice when I run the application now, I'm giving up on the Windows version. Again, now it's all about the code that I want to share with you guys, so it's not that important. But when you press the run, you have the console write line and the console read line. Those are the two that you need. And the console read line will always return a string. So here you can either say, we're going to get a string back, red line, or you can, and the system will stop and wait for that string. Okay, so let's just do a console write line right after. And just write that line we just read in. Something like this. And I can say, using the $, parentheses, I can say, you wrote, and then put in curly brackets, and add this guy right here, yoink. And now it prints out the line I just wrote in. Try and run the application again. And now it should actually stop your console and just start blinking down here, and I should be able to write something. Snurf, press enter, and then it says you wrote snurf, and then of course it exits the application because nothing more is happening. And of course, if you want this to be make more sense, you could do something like this. Type your name or something like this, to kind of explain to the user that you can write something now. If you don't put in these lines, it's just confusing. All of a sudden it just stands and blink. You don't know what to write. And then your name is with cheese. This is a cheese app, right? So it's very important there's cheese somewhere in it. Let's start this again. Type your name, Lars. Your name is Lars with cheese. Already we made an amazing app. So this is kind of how you get started with creating this menu. You have to somehow start reading lines to get what menu selection people want. And then the second thing you need to start working with is, let's say, type in menu choice, something like that. Now the second thing is, when I read a line here and I know it's a number, I can put that in here as parentheses. I could then try to pass the read line into a number. So let's do a pass. I get the read line, I try to pass it, whoops, with an int pass. And this is where, again, you guys need to now start consider what should happen if I get a bad value. Should it throw an exception? Should I handle that exception? Should I keep asking the question? How will I handle the menu? You can make the very simple solution and say the user is an idiot. So if you put in a letter and I ask for a number, well, the program crashes. That's up to you. I don't care. Or normally we would be more polite and we would try and say, okay, that wasn't a number. Please try again, right? So it's really up to you how you do it. In this case, I'm just going to be an evil programmer and just do nothing like this, and then you can see it break. So let's just try and start my program. And notice another thing that's pretty annoying right now is every time I do something, it'll restart. I have to restart the program. That's also not something we're used to. If I put in a number, it says your name is 1. So maybe your number instead. And I have to restart the application. Your number is 1 with cheese. And still, it's annoying. Notice that I have to restart the application every time. So what could the next step be? Well, the next step could be, instead of instead of restarting every time, I could have a while loop right here. And I could say if, whoops, while selection above 0, I could print this. Whoop. And I could just set the selection to be the read line here again. And this is where you guys should say, why not use a method then? And you are completely right. We might want to use a method here because it's the exact same thing we just did once. We're doing that again. So this is actually the same code right here, like we have right here. So maybe we could add a method for that. Let's try and run this again. 2. Let me actually do that. And then it asks again, 1. And then it asks again, 4. And then it asks again, right? So now I have a continuously running. And I know that if I put in 0, it'll actually exit the program. And again, that might be a good comment to give a user. But you see, this is how you build this program. Let me just try and zoom a little bit, if I can. Better? I can just keep this on the screen if you guys want it as inspiration. But this is pretty much the same thing that's in all those Git repositories I showed in the beginning. So you have all of this available if you want to. I just want to kind of give you an overview about these different ways of doing it. Sweet. One more thing. Let's try and put in the number J. I get an exception, right? Because I didn't guard myself against putting in weird numbers. I could keep going, but now I think you guys should have some fun yourself and start working with this. Of course, what you can do here is either you can wrap this in a try-catch to make sure you don't get exceptions. And if you do, you should then just ask the question again, that wasn't a number, please select the number, right? You could also add the try pass and say, like an if statement, just keep going until you get the right number. That's up to you. Then you don't need a try-catch. You just need to use the try pass. And then in the end, hopefully you have some kind of menu. And notice, I'm not asking you guys to create any videos or masks or anything like that yet. I just ask you to make the menu today. Just the menu, just printing up, select, I want to create a new something. Nothing else should happen. And then you press 1 and it says item created, and then back to the menu, right? So we're going to skip the steps of actually creating objects today. That's going to be tomorrow. So I had a few questions regarding namespaces, and I decided just to show you guys a little bit about that. Before I begin, let's jump into namespaces in another language you tried called Java. So I actually went and I found just a GitHub repo with the Java package. So it's just totally coincidence. And it's actually RX Java. So, but that doesn't matter. When you guys wrote Java, you noticed that, or maybe you didn't, but each of your Java files had something in the top called package. And that's actually the Java files, Java's way of actually creating namespaces. In C#, we just call them namespaces. In Java, we call them packages. It pretty much just means what Java file does this class or enum or whatever it is belong to, right? And we have the same thing in C#. So it means that when I actually create a Java file from this, when I compile it, it would end up having some kind of Java file with this name or something like it that contains all the different classes, enums, whatever that had that package name. And that also means that when I need to use it again, I'm going to import such a package name. Let's see if we actually have an example here. So here I import, again, notice the package name. So that means that I'm importing something from reactive annotation non-null. That's where I'm getting this class or whatever I need, right? So how do we do that in C#? Well, in C# we have a similar idea again. We have the namespace right here. And this namespace needs to be something unique for a certain set of classes. So as default, you get the namespace. That's actually the name of the project. That's the default namespace. But you can call this anything you want. But beware, because whatever you call it, anybody who needs to use a certain class need to have that namespace, right? Or import that namespace. So import in C#, that's just using instead, but it's the same idea. So let's try and find one of these classes. Like here I have another namespace, and notice automatically again in C#, if I create a folder under a package, automatically the namespace will be the name of the package or project, dot, and then the name of the folder. So in order to use constants, other places in my code, I would have to write using and then the name right here. So let's try and do it. If I go into program and let's say I want to use the constants right here, menu constant right here equals new, let's do like this, dot line. So there we go. So now as soon as I try to use this menu constants, you'll notice that up here I actually am now using that namespace. And because I'm using writer right here, or if you're using resharper inside your Visual Studio, this using will automatically be created for you. And it's pretty much just a way for the system to know what projects and packages are using what projects and packages in the system. So it's a way to kind of have an idea, just like we're used to with layered architecture. This is another way of actually handling between packages, how they communicate with each other. So if I don't have that using, you'll notice that I get an error down here because it doesn't know where that package resides. If I go to the menu constant, this is where you need to be aware yourself. You can put in anything here. So I could, by mistake, because my cursor for some reason got up here and I was writing some code, I might write var here, something like that, because I didn't notice it. This actually means that, okay, string was a bad one. If I didn't notice it, it would actually mean every place in my code now that used this menu constant would now fail because it got a new namespace. And if I imported it right here, like this, notice the namespace is now CrashCourse var snurf. So that's bad. So just be aware that whatever you call your namespace, that's also what we need to import, or using the using keyword, what we need to get when we want to use this package somewhere else. Let me just go back, and now it's back to constants again like it was before. So the point is just, that's what it's all about. And to those of you who say, well, that was easier in Java. Well, it was the exact same thing, just with different naming. But maybe NetBeans was a bit more helpful than Visual Studio out of the box. So my point is just back to, if you feel that it's a hassle to remember to import things, go and get resharper and install it in your Visual Studio, or go and get writer and you'll get a lot more help, and you don't have to do this manually with the using keywords. But get resharper for Visual Studio. Yeah. And then you go into jetbrains.com and get resharper like this. You download it, click.
Oh, but it costs money.
Oh no, but it's free for students.
Oh. How do I tell it that I'm a student?
You just say, I'm a student, and it will understand. It's a very intelligent program.
Nice.
Let me show you for that second question, how do we explain to the system that I'm actually a student? First of all, again, you need to download this. And when you download it, you get an exe file, you run the exe file. It asks you actually for a lot of different tools you can use. Deselect all of them except resharper. The tools you will be asked if you want to use is actually resharper and writer, .cover, .memory, .peak, .trace. Just deselect all of those and only select resharper if that's all you want, okay? When you have installed resharper, you need to restart Visual Studio, and then it's there. It'll just be a new menu item called resharper. And when you autocomplete and you use IntelliSense, you'll get a lot more help with resharper compared to the basic Visual Studio. When you want to make resharper your free tool while you're a student, you can go to jetbrains.com/student, and here you can just apply for a free student license right here. You have to fill in things like everything, bank account stuff like, no, I'm kidding. You just need to put in what school you're at, what you're doing, why you're using it, and you'll apply it. And then you'll get an email, and in that email, there will be a JetBrains account name, username, and you just have to type that in and you're up and running with the free version. Yeah. So if I do things in my code that it feels could be done smarter, it actually also tries to help you there and give you code examples on how you could change your code to make it more readable, maybe just a one-line or whatever. So it actually helps you out with a lot of things. Let's see if I have something. Here, for instance, in my code right here, I have a string, and it kind of tells me why not make it into a constant or read-only string. So I'll just make it into a constant right here. And again, it's just a way for our code to be stronger and better readable. So you'll get help. Sometimes don't use the help, because sometimes the help is so crazy that you don't want to use it. Another thing, for instance, for those of you who want to start using a link later on, if you don't add the link import directly up here by calling using system.link or something like that, it won't be there out of the box. But with ReSharper, again, even though it's not there, you will actually be able to, let me just create a list right here. So with a list, normally you wouldn't be able to see all the things that link can do for you, or link queue can do for you out of the box. But with ReSharper, again, you will get help with actually using link right away. So notice right here, I start getting some of the first, and it noticed right here, it says, if you're going to use this one, you will actually import link. Okay, so even though you haven't imported link, you can still see the methods with a list out of the box. You can do that with the old Visual Studio. You'll have to know to first import link and then start using it. So again, it helps you a little bit here as well to make it easier to code. And to be honest, why not have a powerful IDE when you code instead of doing everything yourself? Another thing I want to mention is sometimes it can be a little too smart in my mind. So if you let it autocomplete some code for you, make sure you understand the code and can read the code yourself afterwards. Because I might ask, why did you use that code at the exam? And you can't say, because ReSharper told me to.